Welcome to the United Hotspot. It's a Saturday and it is the eve of match day as Manchester United travels to Kenilworth Road to take on Luton. But whereas the fans will be under pressure, hoping for an easy victory against what should be a small team to beat for us, that's Luton. Well, for the manager, every game, like he has been saying to his players from the start of the year, every game is a final. Not just because we need to fight for top four, but it is just that, but also the fact that the manager's job is every day increasingly getting on the line. Reports continue coming between now and the end of the season. Remember, they gave him until the end of the season to do his best, outperform himself, and after that they will be making a sober decision on his future. My name is Webb. Welcome to the United Hotspot, and I know many of us, this is not a conversation we enjoy going into, but the reality is when there is a change, when there is a new sheriff in town, a new boss, they always want to change things around. And when it comes to football, what else do you change if you don't change the manager? It is one of the first obvious things new owners want to change. They do want new managers and start their own life, start their own dawns and spells. So what exactly is the situation with Erik Ten Hag? We are going to talk about that for the most part of this conversation. We'll look at some of the options that are being spoken about, including the Brighton boss, that is Roberto Diabi. We'll talk about him and his profile in coaching, why many look at him as a potential replacement for Erik Ten Hag, but also Graham Potter, who has always been on the list. He has always been top of the talk when they came to whenever we spoke about Sir Jim and Ineos. They seem to love Roberto Diabi, the Brighton boss. But the question is, should Erik Ten Hag be sacked? Now, first of all, I ran a poll just a few months, maybe a couple of weeks or months ago, and I was asking people, should Sir Jim Ratcliffe sack Erik Ten Hag? This is when Sir Jim was on his way to joining Manchester United. It's a month ago, and these were the comments. These were rather the results of that poll. I gave you three options: yes, no, and I don't know. Now, 33% of the 260 people who responded to that poll said yes, Diabi, Erik Ten Hag should be sacked. 60% said no. 7% didn't know by then. I wonder what the 7% would say now. But the majority, 60%, that's a huge number. And at that time, Erik Ten Hag and results were not really seeing eye to eye. They were not really coming his way most of the time. But the majority of the people felt he shouldn't be sacked. I'll give you where I fall, by the way. Later on, I'll give you my take on this and what have you. But we need to talk about it. Then I did ask you about just today. I've just posted this poll just as I was coming for this show, and I asked who would be your pick to replace Erik Ten Hag, because the reality is Ten Hag will not be the manager of Man United forever. But also, you can't write off the possibility of him being sacked by Ineos, because these are new owners and he was not hired by them. So they would want to bring their own man, they would want to bring their own identity. And the reality is, Erik Ten Hag has not really proven himself. There is no single reason for anyone to say Ten Hag, it is clear he has already proven himself. No, the reality is he has struggled to create an identity of this team. And well, how much time does he need? In the first season, he finished third, finished a cup final, won a Carabao Cup. This last season has been, too bad, full of so many injuries and stuff. But for so many reasons, but most importantly, the fact that there is a new owner who will have his own ideas and wants to do things his way. Just even to make a statement, that alone could get him sacked. So if that happened, these are some of the options I gave you. And you can also choose to say none. Graham Potter, Roberto Diabi, Jose Mourinho, and Michael Carrick, or none of the above. You can let me know in the poll section as we get into this conversation about Erik Ten Hag and his job. I also ran a poll, by the way, about Mason Greenwood. I didn't give you the results. Who would you prefer at Manchester United next season? I think there was a typo here. I've just noticed it now. Imagine. Who would you prefer at Man United next season? And 136 people voted, and 88% say, I was saying of Michael Olise or Greenwood. So 88% of the 136 people who responded said Greenwood back, and then only 12% were for moving on and bringing in Michael Olise. So those are some of the polls we've been running. Those polls are still there. You can still go and respond so that we keep a track of them. You never know. I could perhaps make use of them at some point and forward these opinions to Sajim and his Ineos team who are at work trying to find answers to the big problems we have, but from the supporters of the club. But let's get proper into this whole Diabi, Erik Ten Hag, and all these managers who are being linked with Manchester United. Now, the first person to drop, as always, Ernest Kavuta, is saying none of those can manage Man United 100%. Let's stick to Erik Ten Hag. Now, I've told you why it's important for us to have these conversations now, because again, we've got to share our opinions about some of the things that happen, because the reality is Erik Ten Hag's job, whether you like it or not, is on the line because there is a new owner. And we do not know what is at the back of the mind of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Jose Mourinho spoke about knowing him, and when Jose Mourinho was speaking, I lucky felt, because Mourinho said he knows Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they are friends, they have spoken, he likes him, he's a good man, he loves Man United. But also we know that Jose Mourinho loves and adores Man United, because even when he did not win the Premier League title, finishing second and winning the Europa League, he felt like he achieved, but also he was so honored to sit in the footsteps of Sir Alex Ferguson. Perhaps he would have loved to be his direct replacement, but the reality is Mourinho would be open to the idea of returning to Manchester United, but also Sir Jim Ratcliffe would want to go to Jose Mourinho, who is jobless now, but he's loved by Sir Jim. They sort of have a mutual respect. They have met. We can't know where they have met, but Jose Mourinho said it himself in the interview with Rio Ferdinand that he has met him and he likes him. So this is why I say don't write off this. Don't write off this talk that Erik Ten Hag could be sacked. That's why each game that he plays now is a final for him. But let's talk about the serious potential targets that have been spoken about for the longest time. And I'll start it off with the latest, Roberto Diabi. Roberto Diabi is not really young, but for a manager, he's sort of a young manager. He's only 44, and he has been quite around, managed quite a number of clubs from 2013 when he retired as a footballer at Trento. Then going on to coach clubs like Dafo Boario, that's for 1 year. Then he moves on to Foggia. Foggia was a team I used to give people a lot back then when I used to give people. And that's where Brighton got him from. Brighton and Albion to come and replace Graham Potter. Now, all through his managing as a manager, the biggest club he played for, by the way, was Napoli, where he played as an attacking midfielder. But all throughout his management, mostly in Italy, because that's his native country, Diabi has been known for his different style of football, the way he's so passionate, and you see the passion in the way his teams play. He's sort of I feel like Diabi is sort of a little different Jurgen Klopp in terms of his style, because he coaches with passion. Let me tell you the story of him and Sassuolo. When he was at Sassuolo for that 1 year, that same year he managed to because he coached at Benevento and they got relegated, but Benevento was playing very good football. So Sassuolo, which is a respected club in Italy, went for him, and they signed him to become their manager after Benevento's relegation. And in his first season, he called up Kevin Prince Boateng, and he convinced him to join him. He told him, "I'm going to turn you into the best footballer. I'm going to make you a false nine, and put good players around you, and you become the best footballer you can ever be." And indeed, it worked, because that convinced Sassuolo. So that's very important. A manager has got to have the character and the personality to convince big players by the standards of Sassuolo. By any standards, Kevin Prince Boateng was a big player. He convinced him to join Sassuolo. And Kevin Prince Boateng told a story to Rio Ferdinand, and very interesting. So he said, this guy, what makes him special is his passion and the way he manages. That he's not a manager, he's a coach. He wants to be involved, and he's teaching players. He can rip off his pants and put off the shirt and all, and he also get involved in the training. Pass the ball to you, and he will come and tackle you. And when he's training time, he's a good person, good character. But when it comes to that time of training, there is no smiling, no laughing. He means business. And one thing he does, he's so attentive to details that he improves players. Now, I'm trying to give you why he's one of the guys put on the list, not just because of the way Brighton has been playing and how his teams were playing at their best. But the fact is he improves players. And you see, Manchester United needs a manager who is going to improve players, because we are going to rely mostly on young players who need to be improved. Rasmus Hojlund needs to be improved. We need to see the best of Kobe Mainoo. We need to see more of Alejandro Garnacho, because people say there is potential in him to become close to Cristiano Ronaldo. We need to see the best of all the young players we have at Manchester United. Now, a manager who is going to improve them individually. By the way, in all honesty, one of the weaknesses for me that I've noticed about Erik Ten Hag is, for so long we struggled to identify one player who he improved. For so long we struggled to identify a single player he improved. Erik Ten Hag perhaps has a bit maybe is slow in terms of improving individuals, but also you understand that the time he inherited the club, there was no time to improve players. There was no time for him to do that. There was a lot to deal with, but the structure around him made it so difficult. But that's, for me, a justification of why Diabi is being talked about, because he has shown that he can improve players and he's not afraid. He's not a timid. You see, the thing with Harry Potter and why most of us were bashing him when we were linked with him, even if his teams played good football, from Swansea, Ostersund, and all the clubs he has managed, including Brighton itself, they played good football. Even Chelsea, when a good day looked like they could play good football, the reality is he lacked the character and the personality of a manager who would earn respect, that presence of a manager. As a manager, you need to have presence. There is what they call presence, something that I think has sort of lacked in some managers who are potentially good managers, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, lacks a bit of presence. Yet perhaps he could be a good, manager and decent, but you need to have a certain presence. Jose Mourinho has presence. Sir Alex Ferguson had that presence to him. You need to have a certain presence as a manager. And of course, people are not the same, and there are different ways to manage. But you see, for a club like Manchester United, it's important. You need to have the personality and the presence. Now, Diabi has it. Graham Potter doesn't seem to have it. Even if we would see that he's a decent manager, he's a decently good manager. But from the people that Ineos are being linked with, it is clear that they want to play a certain way. They want to play the Brighton way, the football that Dan Ashworth, and you can look at the people they are pointing to. It's not by coincidence, guys. It's not by coincidence that that Sir Jim Ratcliffe goes for Omar Berada, a CEO who was very integral in how Barcelona, Pep Guardiola's Barcelona and Man City played. They are talking about Dan Ashworth, a director of football who was at the FA with England, but most successfully at Brighton and even Newcastle. You realize you try to get the correlation between how the England of today that reached the Euro final and the World Cup semi-finals. Look at how they were playing. Look at how Brighton played. Look at how Newcastle under Eddie Howe plays. Look at Diabi and the Brighton. Look at Graham Potter, and he was at Brighton. So if you read between the lines and you see the people that Sir Jim and Ineos are pointing to, you clearly see that you can read their philosophy even without them saying. You can read and see this is how they want to play. Guys, that's the reality. We can clearly have an idea. We don't know, honestly. We don't know. I can't sit here and pretend like I know how Sir Jim, but I can read from the people they are pointing to, because they have not been linked to Jose Mourinho. I've just said that Jose Mourinho said that he likes him, but we've not had any reports linking Sir Jim to Jose Mourinho, even if we know they are friends now. But you see that all the people they are pointing at are people who have been at clubs that play a certain way that we can really identify. The Brighton way, the Diabi way, the Graham Potter way. They play with some bit of, they are not so far from Pep's style, from Man City's style. That kind of panache and finesse. Now, it looks like that's the kind of football that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos admire. So, if we say now that for them, and you see, whatever they are building is to execute that kind of football they want. They have a philosophy. They have a style of play they want as the new owners, because they are going to be in charge of football, of creating, they are giving us their identity. So, you don't think that Dan Ashworth is going to create something different. Dan Ashworth is known for a certain way of playing football. So you go for him if you believe in the way he wants to play. Now, is Dan Ashworth's way exactly the Ten Hag way? Maybe, maybe not. I think Erik Ten Hag too loves to play that way. Play from the back, build from the back and pass, and there are some bits of similarities. That's why Erik Ten Hag could be a guy they might want to stick around a bit longer, and there were reports that were saying he could stay for a further year, extend his contract by a further year. Or they could actually just let go of him and they bring in a whole new manager. So these are the people they are being linked with. And guys, the reality is Erik Ten Hag has not really made it so easy for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to arrive and say, you know what, this is the right man. We can't let go of him. He has done it. He has proven himself. Not because of being a bad manager, but because if I sat down here and I asked you a question, what is Man United's identity under Erik Ten Hag for the over 18 months he's been in charge? What's the identity of Manchester United? You would struggle to pick it. You can try and try to create it, but you see, it's not. Even when we have moments where the patterns look like they are coming, we struggle to see them. Yet, with Postecoglou, would Eddie have? Postecoglou was at Tottenham Hotspur for a short period of time, way shorter than Erik Ten Hag was at United. But already, even with injuries, when Son was not there, when their Papa, Sahu, Wolver, and all these players, when they were not there, Tottenham still played the same way. This man came and created an identity. Could it have been done by the people around him that perhaps are not so much in the news? We don't know a lot of them. They are directors of football, sporting directors and all. In their structure, I'm not so well versed with the structure of Tottenham Hotspur. I will take time and learn about it. But I don't know whether it's them or it's Postecoglou, but you cannot take it away from them. Because like Manchester, Tottenham Hotspur was going from Conte to Jose Mourinho, from Pochettino to Conte to Jose Mourinho to the other Wolves, former Wolves guy who is now at Nottingham Forest. So they also seem to be like Man United over the place. Perhaps that's why they're not winning titles. I think Daniel Levy has the same problem as the Glazers. He does not have a proper structure around the manager. That's why they don't have an identity. The managers, they go for all over the place. But you see, you need to have a proper identity. Now, that's what Manchester United is creating. Now, is Erik Ten Hag the manager who is going to fit into that identity? Maybe, maybe not. And guys, this is to open your mind. You need to support football with an open mind. Just read between the lines. With the people Sir Jim is pointing at to come in, what football does Sir Jim Ratcliffe enjoy or favor? What football does Ineos favor? Now, we can debate whether that's the kind of football for the Manchester United we support. I honestly don't think the Pep Guardiola football, and whereas football has evolved, with all due respect, whereas football has evolved, I think you need to keep the roots. The roots cannot change. It can evolve, but the roots may not change. You can just improve, but the roots will not change. That's why there can be, debates. There can be debates about this whole, Erik Ten Hag and him being the right manager, because there are moments where you feel there is a certain bit of directness. There is a certain Man U feel at times when you are winning games. There is a feel of Man U in how he plays at times, and the fans love it. That's why the same people who were calling for his head are now sort of divided. People before were in unison saying he should be sacked, but they are now sort of divided, because even when you struggle to win games at times, you feel like the Man U DNA can be embedded somewhere, and it's a moment of time until it clicks and comes up, and that's the Man U people want. But that finish and Graham Potter dragging, passing and all is not exactly for many a Man U supporter, because it puts us under pressure. It's not what we used to. Because it creates a lot of pressure, playing from the back a lot, ball spending a lot of time between the defense and the midfield. That's not exactly the United way. But you see, with Erik Ten Hag, he loves overlapping wingers. That's exactly how United used to play with Patrice Evra and Gary Neville on the right, they were not okay. Evra had good defensive abilities, but Gary Neville especially was very good at overlapping. But that's what Diogo Dalot is beginning to look like. Luke Shaw is also looking like he's overlapping. So there are elements there that you see that when it clicks, the only issue is that it hasn't clicked consistently, but you feel that Erik Ten Hag can be close to the identity we are used to as Man United. But maybe Sir Jim is planning to give us a whole different identity. But also maybe he wants to be his own man. He wants to be his own man. But again, let's look at Erik Ten Hag himself, and let's give an open-minded scorecard of Erik Ten Hag. Ten Hag had a splendid first season. Actually did exceedingly well. We don't even care which football we are playing. We are just winning games and we are doing good, and we finished third in a cup, won a title, and we're in a cup final, lost to Man City. But you look at him, 360 holistically, and you see that he's not really your most sellable person in terms of personality and character. To a new guy who has got the ambition to lift a club, he's not your obviously sell. He's not a Jurgen Klopp. He's not a Jabi Alonso. He's not, for someone who has his money, who is willing to pay 10 million pounds for a director of football, to price out a director of football. He's not your guy who will just, obviously, you just look at and you say, you know what, instantly, this is the guy, I'm sticking with him. So there are debates even among us, even you, Ernest Kavuta, who is saying none of us can manage Man United. Let's stick to Ten Hag. You have a part of you that questions some of the things he does. So would you blame Sir Jim and Ineos if they wanted to spend because they have their money and they want to create their own identity if they went for someone else? I don't think you would so much. But again, the general question would be, how many more managers shall we keep going for? Until when shall we keep going for new managers? That would be the multi-million dollar question. For how long are we going to fire and hire, fire and hire, fire and hire? I will tell you, we will do that in football. You will do that until you get the right person. Let me just give you the straight answer. That will be done. We shall fire and hire until we get the right person. And for now, specifically now, everything before, after Sir Alex Ferguson left, that won't matter. Because at that time it was the Glazers firing and hiring these people. Now it is a new dawn. So forget about the past. It is a restart by a new guy in charge. So whoever he brings in now will be his first. If he chooses to stick to Erik Ten Hag, look at Ten Hag as the first manager of Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson. Because all those in the past decades were under the same management, the Glazers. Now this one, whoever comes in the summer, whoever is managing Manchester United next season will be the first manager of Manchester United post Sir Alex and the Glazers. So it's a restart. So we can't say, it's like saying how many times are we going to buy new players and sell others. Go on the market. It will until it works, until we get the right players. That's the nature of football. You keep trying and keep doing it until it works. Until it works. There is no like you cannot do it for more than 10 or 20 times. The reality is it has got to work. For as long as it's not working, you keep fixing it. Now, is it working for Erik Ten Hag? I can ask you that. If you were Sir Jim, would you say it's working for Erik Ten Hag? If yes, keep him. And let us judge you, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and you see we are now saying he's new and it will take time. We are excited by what he's doing. But let me tell you, next season, if we are not competing for the Premier League title, if we are not competing for the Champions League title, everyone will forget about the happiness and excitement that we have now, because it looks like it's going well, and we will say Sir Jim was a fraud. We will go back to Sheikh Jassim. We will start chanting Sheikh Jassim again. Trust you me. We will forget. Football fans are impatient. You see already, even now, there are people, there is a post I made a couple of weeks ago, and people were already demanding. I think we lost a game. We struggled in the first game that Dave Brailsford attended. I think that was the Liverpool game, which we drew. It was either a Liverpool game or the Aston Villa win where Hoyland scored his first Premier League goal. One of the two, I forget. The first game where Dave Brailsford was at in attendance. No, this was at Old Trafford. The Aston Villa game was at Old Trafford. I think that was the one. And someone was saying, you see, what has Sir Jim changed? Already there is someone who was calling me and saying, you see, we needed a call takeover. You see, we were still struggling against Aston Villa. And I'm thinking, fans are not patient. This guy has not even been confirmed. He has not even made a single decision. And someone already is judging. Yet this guy was just attending to watch his first game. Now that's how impatient football fans are. We might be patient now, but next season, 5 games into the season, we will be saying, we will be judging Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So that's why the guy is in a rush to make things happen, to do things, because he knows in football there is no patience, especially with the supporters. They don't care, especially for a club like Manchester United. There is no patience. So if Erik Ten Hag is not improving, if we lose against Luton, for example, tomorrow, already people will be judging, saying, why is Ten Hag still employed? Managers, clubs sack managers even with 2 games at the end of it. Crystal Palace just sacked their manager, Redknapp. Is it? No, or Hodgson. They just sacked their manager just recently. Why? Because in football, unfortunately the fans don't have the patience, and Sir Jim knows that he has that 25% stake in Man United because of with the supporters. If we hadn't made that noise, he was not going to sell. The Glazers were never going to sell that stake in the club. Never. They were comfortable. They were okay. They didn't want titles. Yes, if the titles came, they were hoping they come. That's why they were spending the money to buy players. But even if they didn't, they were still getting their £25 million from the club every season anyway. So for them, the business was working, and they're businessmen. They don't care about the football. They don't know even the passion of winning a title. They don't care. They only care about the American thing. Tampa Bay, what Buccaneers and what have you. What Wayne Rooney described as watching paint dry. Watching the Super Bowl is like watching paint dry. What a description. Oh, there can never be a better description of that American football, I think. It's like watching paint dry. Honestly, I've been in sport. I've loved sport. I've followed sport. I've failed to find the passion and the interest in American football. There is a certain, you don't feel. You see, sport just speaks to the heart. When you watch football and Kobe Maino scores that goal against Wolves, there is that feeling. You look at it and like, how did he even come up with this? Well, American football, you don't get it. Yeah, I try to read it to understand it, but you see, sports are different, and we love football because it's what we are introduced to. I think when we are kids, but you see, football, you need no introduction. You just watch it, even if you're 2-year-old, and you just love it. You enjoy it, and you even don't know why you enjoy it. American football, Rooney said it's like watching paint dry, watching the Super Bowl, and he was waiting for Usher and Alicia Keys for the music part. These English guys and their American wars. Let me not get into them. They are not for me. They are above me. But anyway, so Erik Ten Hag, keep or sell. For me, I honestly think this is my verdict. For me, I understand the rumors. I would understand if Sir Jim fired him. But for me, where we are now, I think let us wait for the end of the season. And it's not even where we finish on the pile. For me, it is the performances, because before you demand results, and Erik Ten Hag, if it's about results, we should be knighting him, because we had so many injuries, but we are still scrapping results, and we are still in the contention for a top 4. We are still in proper contention for top 4, yet we had so many injuries. So if it's about results, well, the guy won his games decently, and you look at his win percentage, and it's brilliant. I think the best of any United manager ever, better than even Sir Alex Ferguson when he just joined Man United. If it's about that, boss, give him a lifetime contract. But for me, it's the performances. How do we play? Are we improving? The decisions he makes on the pitch. Even if we lose a game, how have we looked in that loss? Even if we drew, how are we playing? Are our performances improving consistently? For me, if that happens between now and the end of the season, and we are consistently improving, You see, when the performance has improved, obviously the results will be okay. You might lose some closely and stuff, but the performance, for example, when you go to Kenilworth Road, are we dominating against Luton? But you see, if Eric Ten Hag just wants a win, he can choose to just come and play a funny game and we still win against Luton. Shall we be happy and excited? Maybe, maybe not. So for me, that's my take. We can wait until the end of the season and make a decision. Hotspot, subscribe. Guys, that's it for me. Let me catch you later. Bye.